Hi, good morning, and welcome to Front Porch Conversations here at the Advent Christian Village. It's a crisp morning, and we're here at the Harmony Center to be a little warmer. I want to introduce our guest today, and that's Judy Jackson. Judy, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. This is a new venture for me.
I always think it's good for people to have new ventures.
Always.
Yes.
Always, for sure. But that's what's life about.
That is, absolutely. Why don't you tell our viewers where you were born and a little bit about your early life?
Okay, I was born in Indianapolis, Indiana, and it was in the county of Marion. And after I was born, my mother and father chose to get a divorce, but it was a little bit later on. I think I was about 5 then. And I never knew I had a father for a while, and I think it was more because it was during the war, and nobody knew what was going on. But overall, I had a good life. My mother remarried when I was probably 7, and I have 2 sisters and 2 brothers. One of my brothers is my mother adopted. And then as I progressed through life, I've gone to school, became an X-ray technologist. I did that for 42 years.
That's all? Just 42.
And I learned about the village from a friend of mine who was worked for the state of Florida, and she brought up 2 children from her work. She would work with the state, and that's how she found this place. And she said, Judy, you would not believe the peace here, or the people, or, I mean, this place has so much to offer. And God, believe me, God is here.
I agree with you 100%. Judy, what about your early years is a special memory for you?
Probably because I lived in a state that had snow as a kid, and kids like snow and playing in the snow and stuff, but I don't really remember a lot of my early years, and I'm not sure why, but in fact, my sister and I were shopping yesterday, and she came up with a story and she said, don't you remember, Mom used to tell us all the time? I said, no, I don't. So, but that's happens, you know.
Did you continue to live in in Indianapolis through your early years, or?
When I was a junior in high school, my parents decided to move to Florida.
And you've been here ever since?
Well, not really. My mother and stepfather moved to Miami, and then they moved back. I guess, you know, when you're that far away from a lot of support in your family, you usually. No, I didn't come down here until, like I said, until I was a junior in high school. And then I went to a business college. My dad, because I was thinking about some of the things I may want to say, but I went to X-ray school because my father worked with a man whose daughter went, and he was excited about it, so he came home and told me about it, because he knew I wasn't happy going to in a business situation. And he told me, and that's how I got started in X-ray. I did well in X-ray. It's a wonderful profession, and I really enjoyed it.
And I bet it changed a lot during the time you were an X-ray technician.
Oh my goodness. It is, I mean, you look at just medical things in of itself. It's amazing. And in fact, it gave me the opportunity when we moved here that I could work in the clinic as an X-ray tech. And I did that, I think it was 2016 when I finally really retired. But but God had something else for me, and it's caregiving.
And when I think of you, that's what I think of. But let's talk a little bit more about a couple of things first. Judy, what brought you to in being an X-ray technician? Did you have a special interest, or is that how you?
No, actually, my father told me a story of the man he worked with's daughter went to X-ray school. And I thought, well, that has to be more different than working in an office. And so I applied, I was accepted, and once I started doing what you do for X-ray, I was hooked. I never looked back. And I had the opportunity to do work with the first CAT scanner, had the ability to do heart cath. And I really enjoyed it. It was fascinating on what you do and what you can do, and unbelievable things that tests that people have that is life-threatening, but it really saves their lives. And caregiving, I think, was the blessing God gave me, because this is what I enjoy the more, is taking care of people, talking to them, tell them what they're going to get into for these different tests, because they're so amazing, and not everybody knows what they can do for you.
I know through some of the medical procedures I've had in X-ray and things, just the person who's there helping you through it. You know, if you're unsure or nervous, it's very important how they react too. So thank you for that career.
Oh, it was wonderful. I'd do it again in a heartbeat.
You said your friend told you about the village. How long ago was that?
Back in the 80s. She brought the children to the facility, the
cottages?
Yeah. My friend told me about this place because she had to bring 2 children to the facility here and what they offered the kids. And when she came home, and I was talking to her, and she said, you know, I have found the place where we need to go if we retire. And that is in the 80s. So that.
And when did you move to the area before you actually moved onto campus? Is that
I moved on to campus in 2006. So I think it's 15 years now.
It is. That's the year I came to the village as well.
It's amazing here. Because every time I talk to people about the village, I said, you're not going to believe what you find. And that's what they tell me. She says they're quiet, it's unassuming, it's everything you'd ever want if you had to retire and be safe is here.
But did your mother come to live here before that?
Before we moved here, we built a house on the river in Branford. My mother lost my stepfather in 2010, I think. I'm not real sure. But we invited Mother to come with us because at her age, I don't want to leave her unattended type of thing. And so she moved with us. And we were here 1 month when she found out she could have her own apartment.
She wanted to run away from home?
Well, my mother was a very strong person, and it took me at least 2 or 3 years as she aged to encourage her to come live with me. Well, she finally did in her 90s. And Mother passed when she was 101. So this village was good for her too.
And that was fairly recently?
Yes, it was last January, the 19th.
And you've had another family member come here since then?
Oh, my sister?
Yes.
Oh, they lived in North Miami Beach, her and her husband, and they are just a neat pair of people. And I'm happy because I have more people here now that are my family. And they love it here. In fact, that's what we were doing yesterday. We went shopping. all of us. And her husband's so sweet. He has a heart of gold, but sometimes, like all people, he can be a brat. But sometimes so am I. And he bought us flowers. I thought that was so sweet.
That was sweet for Valentine's Day.
Yes, ma'am.
And where did they live?
They live in my old house.
And where's that?
It's 23340 Meadowview Drive. And I sold they bought the house, and I moved 1 mile from driveway to driveway, 1 mile to my new place. It's 3 acres, and I live in a fifth wheel, and I camp the rest of my life.
All right. That's a good goal. And is your fifth wheel going to go anywhere with you?
No, it's 36 foot. I would not personally like to do that. Mm-hmm. But if I have to move, I figured, well, you know, this has a camper and a camping area. So if I could do it, that would be a way to be closer to help. In fact, because I live by myself, I have 2 dogs, but I also got a GPS, and I clip it on my hip, and wherever I go, if I need help, I push that button, and help is available.
Oh, that's great to know.
And I love it. It's a magic life, in my opinion, that you can come and do what you want at your age. And I'm no younger, real young anymore.
Well, you talked about your friend who learned about the village. Do you want to tell us about your friend?
Yes, she worked with the state of Florida. She did child abuse investigation. And when we come, when we come to the village, we think we're going to retire. Well, don't believe it. We go back to work because that's our heart.
Mm-hmm. And her name is?
Charlene Groves.
And many of our viewers will remember Charlene, I'm sure.
Well, I'm sure.
Yes.
Probably her before me. I'm the quiet one.
I don't know about that.
I don't either, but that's what I think.
But I know if you did x-rays for somebody at the clinic, they would remember your kindness and skills, I'm sure.
But that's it. It's not a job. It never felt like a job. It was a wonderful place to go when you got up in the morning. You do your Bible reading, and you go to work, and he holds your hand the whole way.
Mm-hmm. And you and Charlene lived on Meadowview together.
Correct.
And after she retired, she was the smiling face at the Loping Gopher for a lot of times.
Yeah, and then she worked at the nursing home too, I think.
I think you're right.
She worked under Kathleen.
And she had a number of illnesses, and you were her caregiver.
Well, yeah, Miss Charlene in 2016, in September the 14th, had a stroke. It left her whole left side that did not function. And so I just took care of her. That's my job.
Would you tell us a little bit about your coming to faith? You talked about doing your Bible study and...
We lived in Hollywood, Florida then. And I went, no matter where we went to a church. And that was our backbone too, But I came to believe in Jesus when I think I was 17. I was baptized in a Baptist church. And it's done well for me. He has held my hand no matter where we went or where he directed. If he talked loud enough, I'd hear him. And so I was baptized in the Baptist church. And then I've gone to many different churches, as I traveled around. But he's always been with me on my shoulder, telling me what to do.
And I guess he told you another thing to get involved in that you just started.
Oh, yes.
Would you share us
yes,
about?
This is the beginning of a new journey, and it's being a volunteer at hospice. And I have the opportunity to visit people who are sort of nearing their end, but I'm hoping that I can help them slip into heaven very easily.
And that is quite a ministry to do that.
I never thought of it that way. I just knew I had to do something else.
Mm-hmm. And you've been through the training with hospice?
I have. Now I need to make an appointment and see Carrie to find out the do's and the don'ts and how do I start here. Mm-hmm. And that's my next phone call, so to speak, to talk to her and get that started.
When you were talking about your sister and brother-in-law moving here, how long it had been since you all had lived in the same area?
Oh my goodness. A long time.
A long time.
Yeah, because at one time I lived in Tallahassee and worked at the big hospital there. I would say 20 years or more. I mean, we always kept in contact. Mm-hmm. We usually did holidays together as it came up. Mm-hmm. But I think my family's sort of kind of close, and we always kept track of each other. Because with my one brother owns his business in not a car dealership, but foreign cars.
Oh, uh-huh.
Sports cars. And he lives in Naples. My other brother lives in Fort Myers. He's a mechanic. Actually, both the boys are mechanics. And my one brother, Jason, my mother adopted because she says, I'm not going to care for a child that I will not be able to do what you need to do because you're watching him, you know, because he was taken away from his parent. So she says, the only way I'll do that is adopting, so I have another brother. So there's 2 boys and 2 girls and myself.
And what have you and your sister, you were talking about her telling stories or sharing your mom's stories. Have you rediscovered things about your...
I don't think so. And now she's only moved here since November.
There might be, tune in, there might be more stories.
Oh, yeah. But like I say, we enjoy each other's company a lot. I probably go over every 2 or 3 days, and we talk on the phone. And Henry, that's Debbie's husband. Judy, you call me when you get home. Now, no, I'm only a mile away. He says, call me. So I promised him. So I always call him. It may be not the first second I get home because I walk the dogs and stuff first.
What kind of dogs do you have?
I have an Australian Shepherd. And my mother's dog, who's just a wee little thing, he's 10 pounds. And that's Cindy. My other dog, my Aussie, is 32 pounds, I think. And he's very protective. So living on 3 acres out of reach of anybody, you can't go out and holler out the door and say, hey, I need help.
Right.
So he's become a little more protective of me.
And do they like having a little place to run around, more space?
Well, I keep mine, I just don't let mine free run. I don't think that's a good idea, personally. So I put him on about a 20-foot run.
Oh, uh-huh.
And he loves it out there. He really enjoys it.
What are some of the things, what advice would you give a young person today? What advice would you give a young person today?
Hopefully, you're a Christian. I think he holds your hand the whole way. When you accept him as your partner, because he's part of you. Remember, he said he's going to live in your heart.
Right.
And it's sad to think about people who don't accept him. You know, and I always tell people if they ask, if I'm a Christian, or what church do you go to, or where did you get your advice? And I says, he tells me. But you have to listen, and you have to tie your tongue so you don't try to argue with him. He will give you whatever information you want, and he'll guide you if you'll listen.
I'm going to a women's retreat on Saturday, and the topic is listening. I think it's a pretty good topic for most of us.
I think you're right.
Somebody asked me how God speaks to me one time, and I said, without even thinking, I said, loudly. And they said, what do you mean? I said, well, he has to get my attention.
That's true, because he will talk to you, and sometimes you feel, I don't want to do that, I don't want to do that, and it's always, I don't want to do that. He says, yeah, you do. And you're right, it has to be loud sometimes.
But also quietness too. In quietness, you can listen very well too.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the, have you traveled much?
We did a reasonable amount. I mean, we've had boats, we've had campers. We were enjoying, I think the longest trip we took was with a pull trailer. Mm-hmm. And we went from here out west, went to the Grand Canyon, went all over that area. We had timeshares, so we went to different, I think the first timeshare that we used was in Massachusetts and off the coast to those little islands.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm.
And we went to Alaska. We flew, that was neat. We flew into Alaska. We were gone 3 weeks. We took, and then we took the boat from Victoria to, what was the name of that port? It escapes me.
Actually in Alaska.
Yes.
Up to Alaska.
Right. And then we went, toured the different areas there. Then we went back to the state of Washington. And they went from the state of Washington into Oregon. And we had a timeshare at a harbor that had all these seals. It had a seal island. And then we went to that fancy place, I think it's in Washington, that has that market that throw fish at you.
Oh, Pike Street Market.
Yes.
That's quite a scene to see those fish flying across.
Oh my gosh. And my favorite fish is monkfish. And if you ever saw the fish, you think, how could you eat that? But it tastes so good. You know?
Is it a white fish?
It's an ugly looking fish.
Right, I've seen pictures of it, but I didn't know what kind of meat it would have.
It's white, and it was very mild. It was very good. I think if you told people you had monkfish, you'd think, nah.
Yeah, I'd never thought of eating it just by the looks of it. But I've eaten some things that don't look so good either and like them a lot. I always wonder who was the first person to ever decide to eat an oyster.
I don't know.
And did they live through it? No. As long as it was fresh.
Don't choke on it anyway.
Yeah.
Well, I like seafood. So.
Do you have some more trips on your bucket list of things to do?
No, I don't. Not at the moment. I've had the opportunity to go quite a few places. But sometimes it's, I know, one of the most favorite places we went was New Orleans with a group of people. And we took the tour, and we went to those beautiful places they have in New Orleans. Mm-hmm. And we went to a place that showed us how to cook. It was wonderful.
That was a trip that I did with my husband, and we went to one of those places to cook, and somebody said, what did you do in New Orleans? We said we ate our way around New Orleans.
Is that not the truth?
Yes.
It was, yeah, I enjoyed that a lot too. And their food's a little spicy, but you know, it's still different.
And I like trying different things.
Me too.
Some things I don't want to try again, but that's, a part of the whole experience.
Right.
Judy, you talked about the village. Has there been anything that surprised you? Or that you'd want people to know that they might not find out without?
Well, when they come here, they think they're retiring, but they're going to be busy because there is since COVID-19, it kind of pushed it down a little bit, but we're slowly coming back. But if you want to do nothing, you can. But they're going to tempt you to do so many different things that they have available. You can volunteer. You can go where the Twice as Nice is, so you can have different items. I don't think there's anything here that sticks out in my mind other than you have such freedom here, and you'll feel safe.
And I think we have so many special things because somebody comes and it's something they like and they get other people involved. So we're always developing new activities.
Reminds me of the clowns. I didn't know much about it other than I kept seeing them around, but there's a lot of things. Like I go to Marchand every Mondays, and our group is is up to almost 6 or 7. Which is a lot because you play in pairs of 2 or 4.
And let me tell you, I believe that's something that'll keep your mind active.
And that's the key.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for sitting down and visiting with me today.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
And I hope you'll tune in again to another Front Porch Conversation.